Welcome, everybody. Dr. Josh Long here with AME Podcasts. Serving Artistic Excellence is the name of what I like to think about when we're moving through this. And it's sponsored by our company called Art and Music Emporium. Purpose of these AME podcasts is to think about adult education and continuing in music making. I do want to tell you about a few things that we do offer if you're interested. We do some performing initiatives, one being the annual Community Band by the Sea in Wildwood, New Jersey, which actually happens the end of July. And we just opened up another one in August called the Bethlehem Steel Company Legacy Band. That'll happen in August. If you're interested, do check out artandmusicemporium.com. There's some information where you can participate. Essentially, you come to a rehearsal the day before and do a concert. So it's a really fun time. We're on social media, Facebook. You can actually like Art and Music Emporium, or you can like Joshua E. Long. We're also obviously on YouTube as you're watching this. Do subscribe to our channel. And if you are interested, we do have a Patreon account. And with that Patreon account, all the money goes towards helping people continuing in the music education process. I have a special guest tonight to talk through and have him discuss his ways of music education and composing, because I think that's what he's mostly into. It's Aaron Noë, and he has Aamano music. And I thought, rather than me sit here and talk more about it, why don't you take it away, Aaron?
Well, first of all, thank you for having me. I really appreciate this. I've been looking forward to this since we talked, and it's been too long. We were talking before, and it's obviously been too long because we had a nice long conversation before we got started with
Yes, we
the
did.
show tonight. But yeah, it's so Amano music is kind of a I do compose. I label myself a composer, musician, educator, and I'm just I have my hands in the mix with all of those things. I still play trumpet. You can see Billie Holiday on the wall back here. I'm a jazz trumpet player, but I also compose stuff. I write stuff, and Amano music is where a lot of this stuff just kind of comes together with from a compositional point of view, but also, you know, one of the you were talking about lifelong music making and stuff like that, and um, one of my latest things was I put together a more of a professional development program for band directors on goal setting, and I think it's I think it has the potential. I really hope that band directors will find it useful because I think it if we ourselves get more goal oriented and really focusing on developing long term goals, you know, what the band is going to look like in 5 years, how does that what do I need to accomplish this year, and then once you've got that yearly goal, turn around and say, well, what I need to cover in these four concert cycles that I have coming up in order for me to accomplish this goal this year, so that in 5 years I have that accomplished in the long term goal. But you know, that concept of goal setting, I think that's one of the benefits of music education because we're constantly doing that. We have a small microcosm of goal setting opportunities within our bands within each concert cycle because we have the corporate goal of the concert performance coming up in 3 months. Then you know, our goal for that is obviously to have a wonderful concert experience, to have a great response from the audience, whether it's our families, whether it's in the marching stands on the marching field, or whether it's in front of you know, this time of year everybody's thinking about the music performance assessments and stuff like that. But we want to have that positive response. We want to have that greatest. So how do we get there? What are the steps that we take? And going backwards, you know, starting with week one, what I need to do to make sure that I can accomplish my goal in 3 months when I perform this piece, in 2 months, or whatever our goal is and everything. But that's kind of the thing I've got on my plate right now, as well as some other. I've got a new flex band arrangement that's coming out pretty soon. I've been working on that. I got a Christmas tune that's coming out, and then I just put together a flex arrangement of Huff's the Zawab's March, which is a fun little march by Will Huff, or as is better known as Henry Fillmore. So, but yeah, that's kind of it in a nutshell.
Awesome. Well, if you don't mind, I'll ask you some questions. And I think we'll start with the professional development
Yeah,
kind of piece that you're working on right now, if you don't mind me asking. So I really feel like, what speaks to me, and I might be using the words wrong, is like a growth mindset, right?
yeah.
As you're just kind of creating those goals. So I'm just interested in if you want to explain a little bit more, and let's do it two ways, if that's okay. One being, as a public school student of what you see, because I know you're an educator every day doing that, what you're looking at, and then also beyond that, as you're hoping they're going to continue, and I say beyond the institution, once
Yeah.
they're, either graduated or whatever, even if, they're out in the community. And if you could just expand a little bit on that, that'd be awesome.
So I wrote about this in my book, Grading and Assessment in the Performance-Based Music
Hmm.
Classroom. Uh, the band, and I'm using the term, it's a microcosm. It is a
Hmm.
microcosm of society. And I think that's one of the biggest appeals to students that are in our programs. When we look at a band of, say, 100 people,
Hmm.
how many of those students are going to pursue music beyond the high school experience?
Right. Hmm.
If we're lucky, 30 to 40 of those kids will go and play in college.
Hmm.
Uh, the vast majority of them, their experience in band is more than likely, unfortunately, it's more than likely going to end from a performance perspective. Now, they will continue to, hopefully, they'll continue to be great supporters of music
Hmm.
and great supporters of music education. But, 30 to 40 may continue to play in their college bands.
Hmm.
How many are going to continue play out of that 30 to 40? How many are going to be continuing to perform once they get out of college? Maybe half of those students,
Hmm.
10 to 15 of those students may continue to play as an adult in their community ensembles or
Hmm.
play in jazz groups or whatever it might be. And then how many of those students are going to actually pursue music as a career?
Right.
And, the percentage of kids is so small of those who are going to pursue music as a career. So it becomes important for us to think about what are we teaching and why are we teaching it. And I think the goal setting aspect of it, I mean, and I'm not saying music is important because of music's sake. Music
Hmm.
is important because it is an expression and allows us to express in ways that the students don't have in any other setting. It's important in and of itself. It should be a part of the curriculum just for that fact alone. But it's also a great vehicle to teach students to become successful, contributing members of their community
Hmm.
and the workforce at large.
Hmm.
And that whole the microcosm of it is that regardless of what they decide to pursue, if they decide to become a doctor, they've got definitely long-term goals with education and pursuing that degree. But and they've got to figure out, you look at medical school, how do you read all the required reading? You've got to set up a plan to get there. You've got to set up a strategy. I'm going to read this number of pages. I'm going to do this at this time. I've got to block out this time to do this and that. I've got to make sure that I cover these things in order to be successful on the exam at the end of it. So you have that aspect of goal setting. Um, in the business world, if you've got somebody that is marketing for a software company. They have a launch of a new software tool or whatever. We set the launch date 3 months out. How are we going to have the biggest bang once we actually make that? There's that
Hmm.
goal setting plan. We've got to have these steps and done. We've got to make sure that we do this and this. The band offers that to students without them even realizing that that's what they're doing. I think that's one of the beautiful things about the band program is that yes, we're teaching music, yes, we're teaching aesthetics, yes, we're teaching all these wonderful aspects of music and uh, you know all the minute details, but at the same time, we're teaching these students to really be long-term goal setters and long-term goal achievers. And that's pretty much from a band director perspective, that professional development is geared towards the band director to think about her program and what she wants to do with her program, where she wants to be in 5 years as a band director, where she wants to see her band in 5 years. Draw that picture. Now let's do an analysis of where the band is right now. What are your strong points? What are your weak points? The strong points, we want to make sure that we keep those in check and keep those growing. But we also need to identify the weak spots and focus our attention towards growing those so that they become more in line with the things that we're doing well. So, and then breaking it down, you got, what does my band look like in 5 years? All right, I've got that picture. I want to have a band of I want to have 2 concert ensembles with 75 students in it in each ensemble. I want a true wind ensemble with 45 players, and then I want a second ensemble with 80 students in it. What do I need to do to get there? And break it down in a 5-year cycle. If I've got 40 kids total in the band right now, that's a lot of growth. That means that over the next 5 years, I need to see this amount of growth each year. I want my students to play grade 5 repertoire at assessment. I want them to play grade 6. I want them to play, Lincolnshire Posey in 5 years. There's a lot of things that need to be taught to my band right now and over the course of the next 5 years to make sure that they're able to be successful in playing grade 5 and 6 literature and stuff like that. So it's mainly geared towards that aspect, getting the band director to really think about their goals, their vision for the program, and then identifying the steps that it takes to get there and accomplish those goals.
That's awesome. I mean, it's definitely great to think that way, just because, kind of breaking it down where you want your band to be. And then, of course, professionally too, as a band director. I mean, wow, so that's awesome. And one thing I was thinking, and just because you said this before, and I know this is more my interest, and I want to get back to a little bit more what you said, but I know you mentioned a common, common research says that, we have all these folks and students in public school bands, young, and then they go to high school and it's less, and then afterwards it's less and less and less. And I was just interested, just because you mentioned that, and I will say this, and I don't feel it's negative, but I always hear, we build these students up for what? You know what I mean? Just because essentially, and I know probably what you're going to say is, more of that microcosm kind of thinking. But I was just interested if you had any ideas of far as like what folks could do to get them to continue, in music making, beyond that, you know what I mean? Beyond the public schools, and then move on and move on and move on, where they're lifelong learners in that, where, and I don't want to say it the wrong way. I always use this. I have a friend who was an all-state band who doesn't play anymore, and he's tells me it's life, right? Yep, I know life's busy. But where it makes it a deal where they come out,
But you bring up a valid point. I was down in I went to Texas. I think it was 2 years ago. I was adjudicating a marching band competition in Texas, and my Uber driver from the airport to the hotel I was staying, I got talking to him, and he asked me what I had flown in to town for, and I told him I was there to adjudicate a band competition. He goes, "Oh, I played clarinet in high school," and Texas bands, they are fine.
Yeah.
Incredible bands and everything. And he told me that he was an all-state clarinetist when he was in high school, but he did not continue pursuing it once he left high school. And to be, I mean, again, Texas, their all-state program, I mean, that is a lot of other states look to Texas as the benchmark for which we should strive towards. I know I teach in North Carolina now, and we use UIL standards for a lot of our music performance assessment, and a lot of states do that. We look to Texas And just because, they definitely have it going on there. But here we have a student that was one of the best clarinetists in the entire
Hmm.
state of Texas, and he's no longer playing.
Hmm.
And that becomes more of a philosophical view,
Right.
because we've got to, in addition, which again, teaching music for music's sake, you know, in the goal process, a key question in goal setting is to ask yourself why. Why do I want to accomplish it? Is it just for me and my own professional goals, or what is the enrichment that this is going to serve in the life of the students? And I think that is key when looking at the goals. There are some communities where it can be all professionally driven. There are
Hmm.
some communities where the student and the program uh, needs to have a different take on it. But across the board, we need to really, from a philosophical view, we need to figure out how we can be better at showing that music is good for music's sake.
Hmm. Yeah, and when I know that, and I'm not by any reason discarding what you said. I was just, when you're thinking about that, it's like he's a taxi driver, and it's nothing against that. I mean,
No, no.
everyone's got to, make a living, and he might like driving. I've done driving jobs, and I'm a music teacher, and they're great. Delivery sometimes is just to have that ease of going down the road and not have anything else to think about, but going from
But
point A to point B.
it could have been any profession, right?
Right,
He
exactly.
could have been
Yeah,
an
yeah,
advertising
yeah,
specialist. He could
yep,
have a marketing manager. He could have
yep,
been, he could have been a doctor.
yeah.
And One, so when I was in living in Virginia, one of my best friends, a phenomenal saxophone player. He used to play, professionally in the Northern Virginia, D.C. area. He would get hired to play different shows. He'd get hired to play all these different things. He was a phenomenal musician, but he was an airline pilot full time. He's a
Wow.
captain. He's actually an instructor. He moved past the captain position. Now he instructs all the incoming pilots and stuff like that. So, what was it about his musical experience as a student that showed him that I need to keep my saxophone playing, regardless of the field that I pursue? That needs
Right.
to be something that I can continue to cultivate,
Hmm.
as opposed to the clarinet player that I met in Texas, where he it was not something that he valued to go beyond that
Hmm.
high school experience and everything.
Yeah. Yeah, well, and that's kind of how I got on the path of this. It just seems like, and you're not going to be able to answer. And I don't think I'm able to answer. And I'm just trying to get an idea of what people are thinking about. But it's like we have these great programs, and of what I see, and I obviously know you like on Facebook, and I'm not trying to blow smoke at you or anything, but like I see you have great programs. You have great students. I see a lot of great performances. I see a lot of fun that you have there, and it's like I always worry about, okay, so then they go to college and then yeah, there's band directors there that's doing the same kind of thing. And then what happens after that? Because is it just us, the music teachers, that are going to keep them going? And I agree with you that I feel like it gives them a lot, but and just I'm always asking that question just because I want to see how to keep people, and I think that's awesome. Like I would have never known a specific airline pilot would be playing a saxophone.
And,
you
he,
know?
and killer saxophone player, phenomenal saxophone
Yeah.
player. He taught private lessons locally also. I mean,
Jeez.
and had a good studio. I mean, it was, but yeah, in our profession,
Mhm.
and in the music community as a whole, and you and I were talking about the community band element in Pennsylvania, because
Mhm.
you're a product of Pennsylvania. Uh, when I went to the conference and last year,
Mhm.
I posted, I some of the different bands that were there, and I was taking pictures and all that other stuff. And I have a friend who lives in uh, the kind of the, well, I guess it's the Denton area of
Mhm.
northern Texas, and he grew up in Pennsylvania, and he was talking about how as a student he got invited to play with this community band that has a rich history of over 100 years of wind band history behind it, and he got to sit in there as a student to play with this group.
Mhm.
He's a he was one of those kids that studied music at Eastman, and then he moved to Texas. He was teaching tuba adjunct, and now he's still in the music profession and still playing in different groups like that. But I think there's a lot to learn from the community band element that we see
Yeah.
happening, and that was one of my biggest takeaways from that visit last year when I came
Mhm.
to the East Coast Band Conference.
Yep.
Did I say
Yeah, it's East Coast Band Conference. Yeah, and it's the
uh, which is hosted by the Ringgold Band. And
yep.
if this is coming out before then, I'm going to plug that because
Yeah, it is.
everybody should go check that out. The if you're not, the Ringgold Band band history. That was the last band that John Philip Sousa
Mhm.
conducted, and but that was my biggest takeaway is that I was just blown away by the number of community members that were actively engaged in music
Mhm.
making as adults of all age.
Mhm.
There were young people there, there were retirees there, and they were all making music together. And I thought that was a beautiful thing. And I think we can learn a lot from some of those. And obviously, it's a cultural
Yep.
regional thing that needs to be grown over time. I mean, that's not something that just happened. I mean, it's been growing
Yep.
over the past century and a half in the Pennsylvania region, you know?
Yeah, and I know like a lot of the the groups that that I'm inspiring, and I'm not trying to put an advertisement here, but like the annual community band, Band by the Sea down in Wildwood, and the Bethlehem Steel Company bands. Like it's just neat because yeah, I know they're more Pennsylvania, New Jersey kind of groups, but it's that kind of that history that I think is, the kind of the golden age of bands when everybody wanted it, right?
Yeah.
And I keep asking that, not that I feel it's gone, but I feel it's not as used as much. And and I just wanted to share this with you just as thinking. I did tell you I started late in high school, and then my band director got me in a community band, and I wasn't even playing on my euphonium. I was playing tuba, and I just, first when I walked in, I always tell this story. I saw people who were all the way up into my grandparents' age, and I was like, yeah, like they're gonna play. And I remember this one woman just took out her trumpet, and I'm just sitting there, my mouth dropped. I was like, whoa, you know, and I was like, wow, she's like 80 years old and she's playing her trumpet and she is doing better than anybody I've ever heard before in my entire life. And I had so much respect for those people of the years of dedication of to music making. And I guess that's where I'm on this quest. It's like, because I see our students having that dedication and I try to think about, what we can do for them to continue, you know, and it doesn't mean
So,
they have to be professional musicians nor, in the profession like we are.
so you brought up a point that about the history of the wind band.
Hmm.
And we look to Patrick Gilmore before Sousa
Hmm.
and the influence that he had. We look at John Philip Sousa and his counterparts in the late 19th, early 20th century, uh, and we revere them as we should. I mean, they were phenomenal musicians. They were
Hmm.
phenomenal composers. Uh, but the thing that is different about those bands and the bands that we see today is, in some ways, our bands are still trying to relive the past
Yep.
rather than, what are we doing to make uh, the wind band relevant to our modern society, which I think
Hmm.
it can be. I think, to be honest with you, I think looking at Patrick Gilmore, looking at Sousa and the models that they had, you know, we talk about um, the classical transcriptions that both of those bands played, and they were prolific in the band world. And they would, but that was when those were, if they were doing a Tchaikovsky transcription, that
Hmm.
was modern music.
Hmm.
You know,
Hmm.
that was
Yep.
very new. It wasn't quote
Yep.
unquote classical. Classical at that time was Mozart.
Yep.
You know,
Hmm.
and even Beethoven wasn't that far gone
Yep.
when
Hmm.
these like if we're looking at Patrick Gilmore, Beethoven wasn't that far removed,
Yep.
uh, and you know Tchaikovsky was writing during this. This was all new music, but at the same time they were writing music in a style that resonated with the community, and there was a
Hmm.
draw to the community.
Yep.
They entertain the community in more than just the band element. They would bring in soloists to kind of feature and showcase major talent, and then they would have a singer come out and just woo the audience with her beautiful voice,
Hmm.
and you know that entertainment element and that connection element with
Hmm.
the the community as a whole. That's in a lot of ways, that's one of the things that we've lost. We've kind of elevated the band so high that it's above our, or we're trying to reach back to the quote unquote golden age of the band,
Yep.
and we're not recognizing that there can be something meaningful to um, our community as a whole, and that's going to be key with the longevity of the band is making that connection with the 90% of humanity that's never played an instrument before.
Hmm.
Because statistically, less than 10% of the human population has ever played an instrument, much less a band instrument. So, how do we connect with the 90% of humanity and make it relevant and engaging and attractive to them to want to come and spend an hour or 2 hours
Right.
listening to wind band music?
Hmm. Right. And well, one thing I was just thinking about when you were talking, and this is just something to think. I mean, I think you're on to something because obviously, the bands were the radio the time period, right? There
Yes.
was no no real recorded device. I mean, there was, but not like it is today, where you can pick up your cell phone and watch everything you want. But I think about that too with the transcriptions, and then and I look on the other side of it too, where, and I'm not dissing this whatsoever, but all right, the more academic pieces, and this is where I want to get to asking you the next question. What you see at a college band, where we're playing these more academic pieces, and people, I don't want to say it the wrong way, just don't understand what we're doing, you know, and to a point where I don't think they're highly attended, just because it's not in pop culture. And I mean, I know this is very, and I'm not dissing this either, but it's like, I just did a talk recently where I think in Pittsburgh, Taylor Swift brought out 72,000 people. And whether or not you like Taylor Swift or whatever, I'm just looking at the many people that are out there, that love her music so much that they'll stand in the pouring rain to watch her concert. And I think about that in the band world, like, how could we get to that stage? And I guess that's what I want to ask you as a composer. And I know this might be a hard one, but how do we get to that, style where there's a following again? Because I think that's what we're lacking, I guess, if that makes sense. You know what I mean? And I'm not saying we have to be Taylor Swift and play Taylor Swift music and band. That's not what I'm saying.
No, no, but just like all the people that have come before us, what are the elements? I mean,
Right.
uh, Bach was building off of the popular music of his time.
Yep.
Uh, Mozart was taking popular music, and so it was recognizable by the masses, but elevating
Right.
it in such a way that it uplifted them. Uh, so as a I and this is something so me as a composer that wants to make money,
Yep.
uh,
Sure.
I you know an academic piece, something that a band director can play with their band, I'm going to sell a lot more of that.
Correct. Yep.
Uh, so, and if it's too poppy, uh, it's not going to sell
Right.
because
Hmm.
it's not a piece that's going to make the NPA list or the UIL list or
Yep.
something like that. But yeah, that's a tricky question, you
Yeah,
know.
it
And
is. It
maybe
is a
it's
tricky.
something.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you that I wrote a piece for a band out in Oklahoma few years ago, "Taken by the Sky,"
Hmm.
uh, and that one, uh, you can actually hear. I was intentional. This was it was designed to be like a an opener or a closer to a concert,
Hmm.
and with that one, there was a lot of pop influence into it. It had kind of uh, a drive and a rhythmic element to it. It starts at da 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 which in a lot of ways is reminiscent of Gloria Estefan.
Hmm.
Being
Yep.
around, that type of approach to it, but it's just that forward driving, and you know, I think there's ways as composers and that we can kind of take that element and incorporate it so that it's
Right.
recognizable. And when I played that piece, from an audience perspective, from a connection perspective,
Hmm.
that one resonates a lot. But
Hmm.
that's a piece that I don't see it ever getting onto an MPA list or a UIL list or anything like
Right.
that. But
Right.
it's something that connects with the general audience.
Hmm.
The band director that I wrote it, he wanted something dedicated to his wife, and she was kind of always supportive of the band. She helped out and all this other stuff. But so I kind of drew from that element that this was a supporter of the band. This wasn't a heady, artistic thing. Although I think it's fun. I think I
Yeah.
enjoy it. I've programmed it a few times. I enjoy it. The kids enjoy it. The audience is really. I get the most feedback from those types of tunes from a general. And again, even from a band director point of view, uh, I did a survey for Wind Conductor a few years ago just to see um, how much band kids are feeding band programs, just to see
Hmm.
how much. And in the survey, I asked people to indicate whether your parents were in band before you. Because I
Hmm.
wanted to know if like the band kids were going and multiplying and putting their kids in band, and if we were just like a self-feeding thing, or if we were actually growing as a program. And it turned out that only half the kids had parents that were in band before them, and of that, about half of those were, so 25 to 30%. Both parents were in band when they were in school.
Okay.
So about 50%, the rest of that 50%, that other 20% or whatever, only one parent, which means that one of their parents never had band experience. They didn't get it. They
Hmm.
did not know what was going on. They
Right.
just know that their kid enjoyed playing trumpet, or their played enjoyed playing flute. They didn't get what we were doing on stage. Uh, and with the other 50%, um, they had no clue at all, right?
Right.
So
Hmm.
from a programming perspective, when we're looking at our fall concert, our winter concert, and our spring concert, having that in mind from a programming point of view, what are we going to do to make sure that the the parents who were never in band find value in the performance that we were doing, in the time that they give up to go see their student perform, and in the investment that they have made for their student to perform the music. How we, from a programming perspective, what are we going to do to reach those parents there?
Hmm. Yeah, I know it's I think it has to come in a little bit, because I think about, like, for example, I'll just explain this really quickly, like even down in Wildwood, New Jersey, for example, we we create our own concert. We're not part of a concert series. We rent the space, we do our own concert, we do our own thing. And the reason being is because, and nothing against them, but the money they put out there are for more of what they call the popular groups. So it's going to be, the popular crowd that's in there. So the Beatles tribute band, the rock bands, those kind of things. That's what they're looking at because they want the most people to come out and listen. And I guess that's, you're making some valid points, about how to, kind of capture that. I mean, of course, with parents, I think you might have a captive audience because they're there for their children, right? But it's like,
But you've got to have the value from an
right,
advocacy point of view. You've got to make a musical
yeah,
connection with those parents,
right.
from
I agree
because
with that.
if I have a parent that finds a piece in the program that was never in band before and comes up to me and says, "Wow, that piece was really cool. I really like that." I want that connection because I've just built a stronger bond and a stronger relationship with somebody who's uh, essential in the future of my band program and the
Right.
success of my band program from a parent involvement, from an advocacy point of view, and stuff like that.
Well, one thing I think off the back of my hand is like, my mom, for example, who came to all my concerts, and she still talks about today how, my band director, and yes, I think he was great. I'm not saying anything wrong, but it's like he had America the Beautiful. Of course, I know it's America the Beautiful, and everybody knows that tune, Carmen Dragon,
Common
and
Dragon.
right. I mean, the most standard one that we use, right? And I think what he did differently, which he still remembers, is right before the end of the whole trumpet fanfare, kind of the end, the band's playing in the front, and he opens the curtain, and as the curtains open, there's a whole back line of students that are in uniform from the marching band uniform, and they're all trumpet players ready to do that fanfare, and she still talks about that today. you
That's
know
awesome.
and it was a showman piece,
Yeah.
a way of doing it. And she always says that, oh, he always had different ideas, way to, show it. And I think it kind of goes back to your professional development of um, program, that is, where you're thinking of like what you can do to inspire everybody, because I think it's that experience that she still latches onto. And I heard that she goes to community band performances in her town, which I'm not a part of. you know,
That's
so
awesome.
so it's awesome, you know what I mean? And she's like, yeah, it was really cool, and I think about it, even though she never played either, you know. So that's something to it's definitely something you're really definitely on to something there, where
Well, and
you think of that.
I love that your band director did that and made a connection with your mom. He probably made a connection with a ton of parents
Yeah.
there by that whole experience. But that's the same type of when we look at modeling a band performance after John Philip Sousa,
Hmm.
that element
Hmm.
is what is really in the tradition of John. And Sousa in his biography is talking about the conductor of he was having was it Tomasini, the conductor of the major orchestra. They were
I believe so,
talking
yeah.
about programming and stuff like
Programming,
that, and
yeah. Hmm.
you know they going back and forth, and John Philip Sousa just kind of said, uh, "You're an intellect, and your musical program is to the effect of yours is intellectual, is all this stuff. I'm an entertainer." And that was his fallback. I'm an entertainer. I want to make that connection, and I think
Yeah.
that element is important for every band,
Yeah.
regardless
Yeah.
of what level, whether
Yeah.
you're a middle school band director teaching beginning band
Mhm.
and having their first concert. What is the element that you can make connect with your audience, or whether you're a high school director, how can you make that connection, or a community band leader? And I'll tell you, you were talking about the college bands, and even the professional orchestras are starting to dig into this too. Um, the contemporary classical music,
Mhm.
the Tchaikovskys of our age, are the people that are writing music for film and for writing music for video games. And we're seeing more and more where orchestras and wind bands are adding that element to their programming. They're
Mhm.
programming music from these movies and actually projecting the movies and creating a soundtrack along with them, or they're finding the video game music and orchestrating that for wind
Mhm.
ensemble. And the the gamer kids are now adults with children in high school, and they are going to recognize when you pull a theme from Halo or a theme from whatever it might be that they were playing in high school 15 years ago, and now they
Yep.
have a 13-year-old daughter that's playing trombone in band, and they're going to be super excited when they hear something like that, and it's going to be that engaged. Anyways, that's
Yeah, no, I know. Well, when Nintendo Mario Brothers, the original theme from that came out, I know that was a big hit.
oh yeah.
In band world, it's like I know I was actually I had a friend. You just reminded me. I know when I was teaching at a college, we were going to try to do some sort of game band thing together, where we would, maybe do something where, but we were trying to figure out how, like, if you would go to different levels or whatever, then the music would change, which reminds me so much of, I think I think it was John Cage, wasn't it? Yeah, I think it was John Cage who did all the chance music, if I'm not mistaken. You know what I mean? So music by chance. So we were thinking about all those kind of things, but I mean, definitely, but yeah, I mean, one thing I just wanted to add, I know one thing that I've done at more historic concerts is the Star Spangled Banner at the
Oh
end,
yeah,
you
yeah.
know, because
Don't discount the patriotic element.
yeah,
Yeah.
well, and the only reason and again, forgive me, I don't know what the dates were, but I know, when John Philip Sousa was doing that, the banner wasn't, the national anthem at that point, so it's just very much an entertainment, and I think, that's a great point to that.
Yeah.
Well, as we're thinking through this and as we're kind of concluding our talk here, I was just interested if you could just expand a little bit, maybe, if you have any words of wisdom, as far as, like, what to tell other teachers, other musicians, those kind of things. And I've been asking almost like everyone has been on this podcast, this, like, what you could say about, music in the regards of continuing, because that's what, obviously my quest of this. And, I will say it this way, I'm just interested in seeing people still performing. It doesn't necessarily have to be band, but being involved with music. I mean, if some people can't, they could at least come to a concert. I always say that too. Just because about live music making, and I was just wondering if you had any thoughts, any words of wisdom, and again, I'm looking. I know you do it every day, and you put it in every day of your students, I'm sure, but just wondering if you wanted to say something a little bit about that.
Well,
Loaded question, I will tell you.
it is, but I'll tell you, everything that we've been talking about tonight, whether
Mhm,
it's the goals that you have as a professional,
mhm,
that the things that you want to accomplish, the things you want your band to accomplish, the things you want to connect with in from an audience perspective, uh, the things that you want to resonate from a community perspective. Um, it all boils down to relationship. And
mhm,
uh, my dad was a sales guy, and he used to listen to the great Zig Ziglar, and
mhm,
I've listened to him as a motivational speaker just a ton as an adult, and I listened to him a lot as I was putting together the goals seminar and stuff like that. But one of his catchphrases is, "You can get everything in life that you want if you just help enough other people get what they want."
mhm,
And it boils down to building those relationships, making sure that you're not just taking from those moments. You're not just taking it. If you want to have professional success, help your students find their own personal
Hmm.
success. If you want to have a stronger presence in the community, help the community to build those bonds and those strengths and stuff like that. So I'll leave it with that. That's not my quote. It's something that I stole, but I think there's a lot of validity to it. It's all about relationship. Build those relationships. Be a nice person.
Well, I appreciate that. I mean, I definitely kind of agree with that. I know we've, while you were talking about that, I'll just share really quickly. I know we met online through East Coast Band Conference, and I know you came up to that, and it just by a little advertisement I did, and I know we've had a great connection since then. But I thank you for saying that. I mean,
Yeah,
definitely, I think it is about relationships, and I look at part of that because I feel from what you said in the beginning of being how you're thinking with each and every one of your students or what they're doing just in your band program can translate to what they're going to do the rest of their lives, non-music, I will say that, and their
yeah,
job, I think is something to say. So thank you for that.
yeah, man. Well, thank you for this experience. I really, this has been a blast.
Yeah, thank you so much, Aaron. Like I said, I appreciate it, and and I will say, I will say this to you and I said this earlier off camera, but I'm going to make sure it gets on camera that I do appreciate everything I see. I haven't been down to North Carolina to see your groups, but everything I see online, I know your students are just having a great time, and especially with your compositions out there, you're just really adding. So thank you for being involved with music, and thank you for changing students' lives with music. Because of my conversations with you, I've never been under your baton, as they say. I see such great output. You know, that
Well, thank you, man. I
it's
appreciate that.
amazing.
I'm blessed. I tell everybody that I'm blessed because I get to work with the best kids in the school. So,
Awesome.
yeah,
Thank you so much, Aaron.
my brother.